I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Dennis Bender,
Here.
Donna Davis,
Here.
Maria Opara,
Here.
Rick Raleigh,
Here.
Wilson Self.
Here.
Here. Okay, I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Kylie, do we have any public comment cards?
We have no public comments at this time.
Okay. Let's see, we need to go into closed session to discuss the following. And so,
Section.
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
okay,
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, call the meeting back into session. And, let's see,
Pledge.
we have to have the Pledge of Allegiance
Yes.
again.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
It dawned on me. Maria, would you like to lead us this?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Um, do we have a CSEA representative there?
We did receive a report from CSEA. This is from CSEA Chapter 828 President Mike Kaufman. Good day, board members, cabinet, and Superintendent Nelson. I want to thank all of you for your efforts this school year to keep things focused. It has been challenging for us in many ways. Most of my communications are normally with the classified employees and their concerns. Many of those concerns are because they do not understand the complexity of what is happening. It's creating a fear. As we look to the future while completing the past, CSEA has high hopes that road bumps that have occurred can be repaired. We hope the road ahead can be paved with a stronger, more resilient bond between labor and administration to best serve the students and community. At the last board meeting, I heard Ms. Okpara ask a question that was similar to what many of the employees have asked me. The 5% reserves we maintain by board policy. Why can't we temporarily use the 2% over the state's mandated requirement to protect as many programs and jobs as we can? Governor Newsom proposed to use the rainy day fund money down to zero because of this crisis. Why are we not following a similar example? I would hope the board would consider and have meaningful discussions on that and similar options. Costs have been rising, especially on food, and a few things that held the CPI down was fuel because we were unable to go anywhere. Classified had a bit of a hit in health insurance, causing us to change the structure to make one plan more affordable, but still at a higher cost. We are everyday people with little knowledge of the workings of a large organization. When things are good, most of us do not pay a lot of attention to the spending habits of any organization. When times get tough, we scrutinize all of the costs we see and do not see. Please use your experience not to lead us by cutting expenditures at the employee level, but trimming costs, not buying new furniture when the old things can be repaired, not buying equipment, existing labor can do the same task, and yes, being conservative when using utilities. These are small samples of cost savings that can be implemented all the time to build reserves and protect labor. I know it requires renewed efforts periodically, educating us as employees and inspiring us to continue these habits during good times and not so good times. Our community expects us to educate their children. They have and always expected the staff to be role models, so the students' lives will be better than the last generation. Public unions have always been about the improvement of workers' conditions and understanding the communities in which they live and work. Let's keep our workers, keep the benefits, and pay them a fair wage. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all a healthy, safe time before the next school board meets again.
Thank you. And do we have a representative from AVUSD?
I did not receive anything from AVUSD.
Thank you. Closed session reports. Clerk will read out any action taken in closed session.
In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action in support of the following recommendation from the superintendent. B3, Conference on Litigation, Government Code Section 54954.5D, Jane Doe Number 1 and Jane Doe Number 2 versus AVUSD. On a motion by Mr. Raleigh, seconded by Mr. Bender, The board voted unanimously to deny the claim of Jane Doe number 1 and Jane Doe number 2, for a tally of a vote of 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Adoption of the agenda. The board may approve the agenda as is, add.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as is.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Recognition, Dustin?
Yes, thank you. It is that time of the year. It's our final board meeting, and we have a presentation and recognition for our retirees that will be leaving our system. And many of them take many, many decades of experience serving our students, serving our community. This one's been a little unique. Typically, you'll remember we bring all these folks in front of us and we read about them, and they get their gift and they sail off into the new adventures of their life. Well, this time, you know, over the last couple months with the kind of no contact and pandemic that we've all endured, our public information officer, Zoe Widener, and also my executive assistant, Jordan Wells, have spent a lot of time reaching out to the retirees to try to gather that information and have them write their memories, their accomplishments, and some special and funny moments. Many of them, I have a slide at the end of this presentation that I call the shy retirees, because they were like, no, I don't want to send anything in, but you know, we've got their name. We'll recognize them as well. Some, you know, you can imagine the personalities we come across. Some have very few words to say, and they say it brief, bang, bang, and they're done. Others took their time and want to share things. So I'm excited that we did it in this format, because the slideshow I will be working with Zoe to post on our website so that the retirees can go in and read, or, you know, public can view. But what I'd like to do now is go through this. I'm going to read a lot of what they had to say. Some I'll point out some highlights in what they've represented, but I'm going to take over the screen here real quick and honor these people with their time.
Would you like half the lights
Yeah,
dimmed?
so we can see.
Mr. Buchanan, could you hit one of the switches to your left?
Just not the one that'll kill the projector.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the 2020 retirees, I don't know if we're going to call this the COVID class or whatever, but our first retiree, and again, this is in the order that they respond, but Cindy Franklin, her most significant accomplishment, 37 years teaching and learning from young children. Her funny or poignant memories, there's too many memories of time with colleagues and the brutal honesty that comes from very young children. I treasure so many memories. Her immediate plans after retirement, her husband and her are leaving California after 30 years to return to Arizona, the Tucson area, where her first 30 years were spent and where her teaching career began. Long-term plans for retirement, enjoying time with her husband and her mother, who is 86 years old. She hopes to enjoy her new home, cycling, volunteering, and waking up later than 5:30. Next, we have Carol Brown, her most significant accomplishments, enjoying every year that she's taught at Mojave Mesa and Phoenix Academy. Funny or poignant memories, years ago, a student brought in a rooster for a share. The cage collapsed, the rooster ran around the class, and the students laughed with delight. During the fire several years ago, smoke smells drifted into the classroom. All her second graders put their shirts over their mouth and nose. They looked so cute, like little bandits or raccoons. And immediate plans after retirement, sort out everything she's brought home from her classroom. Long-term plans for retirement, her husband and I, and her, not me, sorry, will be flying to Washington, D.C. to visit their son and his family, new grandchild and new golden lab puppy. Mary Welleman, funny or poignant memories, when she was doing the Renaissance rallies, one of her colleagues decided to come out in a coconut bikini. Without any of us knowing she was doing that. We all stopped in our tracks and tried to quietly push her off stage. It was hysterical, and probably job security for the HR department. Most significant accomplishments, being at the same site teaching for her entire career. Immediate plans, her daughter Emily is getting married in July, so she's planning for that. Her son Matthew and his fiance are expecting her first grandchild in October, and these two events will keep them busy for a while. Long-term plans, her husband Ron and she would like to travel. Ryan Williams, most significant accomplishment, it took half his career to learn that God wanted me to work with at-risk kids. He's very proud of the work he's done at Willow Park and High Desert Premier Academy. High Desert Premier Academy has become a positive place for students to be, and the staff is fully student-focused. He can't wait to hear the WASC results, and he expects it to be very, very positive. Funny memories, while teaching 8th grade, he had a bout of Bell's palsy, which left half his face paralyzed. He would do Sylvester Stallone impressions in class to make fun of himself. The students were very good about it and never heard any of them make fun of him. Immediate plans, he'll be splitting time between his 4 grandchildren, doing volunteer work with the LDS Church and working for 2 of his sons at Justice Property Solutions. He'll be acquiring distressed properties for their rehab and remodeling. Long-term plans, he wants to visit every national park with his wife and family. Denise Baxter, most significant accomplishment was working for AVUSD for 20 years. Funny memory when Mr. Clay dressed like Santa Claus for the lower grade students. Also, when it started snowing during a Christmas assembly and we had to stop abruptly in order for students to load the buses, it looked beautiful that day, but like a true winter day. Immediate plans after retirement. Her real plans were to take a nice long cruise. However, that has really changed. She'll be traveling to her home in Oklahoma, not sure when, and also spending time with all 9 of her grandchildren. Long term, she'd love to travel to the Great Wall of China, but have to be patient to see what the future holds. Belinda Gagnon. She, funny, poignant memory. Sorry, I've lost my place on my notes here. She talks about a project where she asked students to draw who they are now and who they are in 10 years. She did herself, showing, and explained to the class that, well, 10 years from now, I plan on being retired. So this is what I will look like. When the students were done, one young boy decided to draw a picture of himself today, and that picture was him sitting playing video games and eating snacks. And his picture 10 years later was him sitting playing video games and eating snacks. And she questioned him, saying, you'll only be 18 and you're just finishing high school. How can you retire if you didn't work? And he said, well, I am working and you're my boss. So that was enough said. So that was out of the mouths of babes. Her most significant accomplishment after teaching middle school for 7 years, she took over a K-4 SDC class. It was very challenging, but she was able to celebrate successes large and small. To teach 1 grade of elementary can be challenging. She stepped into a class making lesson plans for each grade level, and soon the grade level lessons were building upon the grade prior, all at the same time. She learned how to take 1 lesson and turn it into 5 and still address the needs of each student. She thinks her most favorite moment was when she observed her class solve the first CGI math lesson. To see them think for themselves and work with each other to share ideas was wonderful. Her immediate plans to sit back and relax, cherish the memories she has made at AVUSD, and spend some quality time with her family to reflect on the next chapter of her life. Long term, she lost her brother on July 4th. 3 weeks after we started this school year, she lost her brother. She's since become her father's caregiver. Her father was adopted years ago. We met his biological family, and it's huge. He met most of his family. Now that it's just my father and I, were thinking about moving to Kentucky to be closer to his family and set down new roots. Lisa Hoberman, most significant accomplishments.
She did, right?
You can see she's had a 35-year career with us in AVUSD, has worked both at middle and high schools, Vista Campagna. She has worked with organizations like NASA through her career, obtained a national board certification for her credential, was admitted to or accepted on the California Mathematics Frameworks Committee when Common Core was rolling around, and got to spend a lot of time both informing our district on what was coming and be instrumental and have a voice up there to implement the state all around. As she looks back, she feels blessed that she has turned what she loves into the best career a woman, mother, and wife could ever hope for. It has allowed her to follow her passion, her dreams, and set an example for both Joanna and Bill that a parent can fulfill their dreams, as well as helping their children attain theirs. And for that, she is very grateful. Her funny or most poignant memories, first one she alludes to is, I guess she met some guy while she was teaching in this district, ended up marrying him, and has had a wonderful marriage to her husband, our former superintendent, Tom Hoberman. She shares stories of crazy bus rides and once again recognizes the changing world of human resources and admits to things happening throughout time that probably can't really sing some of the drunken sailor songs they used to and get away with it in today's world. But she has those memories. She mentions enjoying times where, you know, being a parent in the district and having to your own children in the district is a direct line to anytime they step sideways, and had that immediate response of colleagues to help her through that.
They produced two wonderful AP.
Yes, two wonderful children, and I know, she should be proud. Lisa, immediate plans after retirement. Well, honestly, it's been sort of a trial run, she says. She's had to start being home 24/7 with Mr. Hoberman earlier than expected, and it's not as easy as it sounds, but doable. She wants to enjoy the last half of July and not have to worry about going to set up a classroom or offer to be part of some district PD that she's presenting, but especially know that she won't have to work on her birthday, July 31st, ever again. Sleeping in with a smile on my face on the first day of school while all of AVUSD is at work. Long-term plans for retirement, spending the rest of my life with the love of my life, Tom. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Spending the rest of her life with the love of her life, Tom. Going shopping for that new RV and traveling all over the wonderful country with her hubby, sewing quilts, gardening, and actually having the time to do genealogy all day, watching and spending time with their children and seeing how they grow and how their lives unfold in the coming years. We will have a wedding to celebrate soon, and that will be a wonderful party. And of course, if you know her, as soon as Disneyland opens again, she's there along with a trip to Morongo. Laura Roselle, most significant accomplishment. Personally, one of her most special accomplishment is helping to raise 8 amazing kids who are all wonderful, kind, and productive adults with families of their own. In education, she would say one accomplishment that stands out is being an AVID coordinator counselor for the past 14 years and taking part in leading her school site to being a designated AVID school-wide site of distinction, as well as becoming a staff developer for AVID in the summertime when she's involved with training new school counselors. She thinks it's pretty remarkable considering that she was the first person in her family to graduate college and that she used to be quite shy and afraid to speak in front of groups. This speaks to the power of education and what opportunities it creates for all of us. Funny memories. Some memories include being thing one on Dr. Seuss's birthday, dressing up for Spirit Days, talking like a pirate on the intercom, even though it's no longer a PC, guest announcing at lunch menu on a bun, hula hoop contests with the students, and dancing on Fun Fridays. Poignant memories include helping students and staff during crises. She will not miss that part so much. Another one is about 3 years ago when a young lady came when a young lady came up to her at an AVID conference and told her she had been her 8th grade counselor. She told me I was a big reason she decided to go into education, and this was her first year as an AVID coordinator herself. This was a great moment. Her immediate plans are just starting to build her new forever home in Elbert, Colorado, northeast of Colorado Springs on 35 acres, where 3 of her kids now live. And some traveling to see other kids and grandkids working as a virtual AVID staff developer. Paul and her plan to continue to develop the Roselle Ranch. She'll have a campground, bike courses, and gardens. It'll be a place for 22 grandchildren to come and fun experiences with their cousins. We will even let the grown-ups hang out on that there too. She's going to enjoy a lot of the national parks, hike, and camp. When things get back to normal, she also plans to take some cruises and travel. Periodically watching the 22 grandchildren will likely take a bit of her time. However, she doesn't plan on having all 22 at once until they're a bit older. She's planning to keep working with AVID, helping teachers, counselors create college and career-ready campuses for our young people. Take a quick sip. This next one we can skip. I'm kidding. But now it won't let me go back. There we go. Jed Snell. Funny or poignant memories. When he first came to the district office as a TOA for instructional technology, the TOA office was located in a metal warehouse building. Within the building, there were rats known to reside as well. The TOAs made light of the situation and had a life-size fake rat, which we began surprising people with by hiding this fake rat in various places, such as desk drawers, etc. This soon became a form of welcome and initiation for some that were new to the district offices. This rat found itself in various places, including Tom Hoberman's office, Trene's office. He also appreciated those at the district keeping things light and making AVUSD a fun place to be. Most success or significant accomplishments, helping to make a difference in the student lives with AVUSD for 8 years, supporting teachers, the integrated technology in the classroom for 22 years, and bringing G Suite and Google tools to AVUSD. Immediate plans, he's enjoyed spending more time with his retired wife, adult children, and grandchildren. He's also been able to serve various ministries, assisting them with utilizing technology in their ministry. Long-term plans, he hopes to travel while serving in various short-term mission opportunities, as well as increase his involvement while serving his local church, High Desert Church. Deanna Palmer. One unique thing about Deanna Palmer, she talks about early on in her career, she was a teacher without a classroom. She taught in workrooms. She taught in the speech bus, apparently a bus that was used I wasn't aware of. And that was a classroom for her. The one thing she talks about is she taught in an area that was called the Nook, because there were nooks and crannies that she always went to teach, and that was where she brought her students. But one time in the Nook, there was part of I believe a teacher's lounge or something that had a stove, because one of her students made his way around behind, played with some knobs on the stove, and resulted in a fire drill for the school that may have had more truth behind it than was actually there. It's ironic to her, one point she makes, that her very first year teaching, the big news in education was that Apple Computers was donating one of their new computers to each public school in America. And by her last year of teaching, her entire educational delivery system was online for the entire fourth quarter. So she went from getting one computer in a school to finishing her career 100% online. Most significant accomplishment, she started with AVUSD for the 84-85 school year as the first and only teacher for the new bilingual individualized learning program. She served all 4 schools. Mojave Mesa was opening that year. She grew the program for the next 30 plus years, watching the district grow and become a unified district, and the population of English learners grow from 54 to about 1,200. She's taught at almost all of our K-6 and K-8 schools, and taught over 300 of our own teachers when they were required to take the AB 2913 course to comply with SEDI and ELD certification. She's taught English to a few hundred parents of our students, and she's taught 3 generations of a handful of families. When she accepted the position with AVUSD, her intention was to stay here for 2 years, just long enough to get a good start on her career in education. She never dreamt that she'd be here for 36 years and spend her entire career in one district. Her immediate plans are to be able to visit her grandchildren in Washington State and Arizona much more frequently. Long-term is still being formulated. She's waiting for her husband to retire, and as she cares for her elderly parents in Apple Valley. She's waiting on her husband's retirement, which should be enough time for purge and organize and disperse more than 3 decades of educational debris. John and her plan to do some traveling and pursue hobbies that have been on hold for too long. Next up, Ben Shelby. Ben Shelby's most significant accomplishment is he managed to clean up the accounting system and keep it clean with positive audit reports from 2013 to 2019. Funny moment, he managed to be on stage for his daughter's graduation from AVHS. Immediate plans after retirement are to stay quarantined, and his long-term plans for retirement are to travel the world. Deborah Taylor, immediate plans after retirement, relocating to Murrieta and spending time with her new grandbaby. And her long-term plans are to spend as much time with family and enjoying the beach as much as possible. Excuse me, not COVID. Cindy Bainey, most significant accomplishment, building relationships that she treasures with her students. Funny moment, laughing so hard with her students on a daily basis. Her immediate plans are to move to Cedar City, Utah, with her long-term plans to travel the world. Judy Clover, most significant accomplishment, raising 2 great sons and her husband, family. Immediate plans after retirement are to help with her grandkids, and her long-term are restoring her house and enjoying life. Marlene Basilenko Squires, funny moment when she was singing in class as children had free choice time, and one of the little ones said, "Mrs. V, will you please stop singing?" The staff laughed. This student is now a junior at AVHS. I just got such a kick out of this. He asked so nicely. Most significant accomplishment, preparing hundreds of preschoolers for their future learning. Immediate plans are just being home and getting home projects done, but the long-term plans will be caring for her 3-year-old granddaughter as her daughter, Amy, works at Desert Knolls in their preschool. Diane Bernard. Most significant accomplishment, one thing is that she's never been defined as to a 9 to 3:30 only person. She's usually at school 8 to 4:30 or many times later. If something needed to be done, she would be there to work on it. Her funny memories, she's been fortunate enough to work with several great teachers with whom she's learned so much. Most of all, it was being treated as an equal educator. Immediate plans after retirement. Originally, her husband and she were going to rent an RV to travel around the States this summer, but because of coronavirus, they now put those on hold. She will now be able to do small trips when he has the time off. Their time off schedule usually didn't coincide. Long-term plans, she now has time to really organize her house. Nadine Muro, most significant accomplishment is 30 years serving AVUSD in Range 24. Immediate plans after retirement, just getting through COVID-19 after recovering from cancer. Her funny moment, she was extremely fortunate having a job she loved with a new unexpected daily adventure. And her long-term plans are to travel and visit family in New Mexico. Linda Gibson, funny memories. Many days in law enforcement were stressful and tiring with long hours. However, she really enjoyed her job assisting the public, working with Chief Molina and serving our officers and dispatchers. Together, they made a great team, worked hard, encouraged one another, and enjoyed laughter in the midst of it all, especially with the many hilarious, quote, radio bloopers. So many good memories were made and great relationships were built along the way. She was blessed to be part of this department. Most significant accomplishment, coordinated and updated the dispatch center from handwritten radio logs and manual record keeping to a more efficient computer-aided dispatching system. Her immediate plans for retirement are to begin the beginning of retirement was quite different than she expected. She realized quickly she no longer had needed to do multitasks throughout her days at home, but breaking the nature of that habit took a few months. Honestly, the stay-at-home orders helped tremendously. She's now enjoying gardening and relishing more peaceful moments. Long-term, in the future, she hopes to visit her home state relatives in Maryland and faraway grandchildren and friends. She loves outdoor activities and music and plans to learn how to kayak, paddleboard, and play the violin, along with as many trips as possible to the beach with families. Excuse me. Joe Waters, most significant accomplishment, making a difference in the lives of underprivileged kids. Funny moments, did the job long enough to embarrass himself. Most recently, while attempting to break up a fight, his pants fell down. The video was uploaded to social media almost immediately. He had just returned to work from a surgical implant in his back and at waist level had to wear baggy jeans with no belt. Immediate plans after retirement, relax, stay off his feet, and take care of grandsons. Long-term plans, plan on traveling to Tennessee and South Dakota and eventually relocate to Tennessee in the next 5 years. And I mentioned we reached out over the last couple of months. There are many more retirees in our system that, for one reason or another, didn't want the spotlight, but we can't let this moment go by without acknowledging this list. I've included a list of these folks and the number of years they've served our students in our district. And I'll just read down that list briefly. Mike Castellano, 21 years. Janice Gillard, 30 years. Catherine Harmon, 20 years. David Stover, 35 years. Tamara Kurtz, 7 years. Sandra Rodriguez, 30 years. Don Palazzola, 25 years. David Olson, 31 years. Donis D. Castellano, 14 years. Ann McLean, 23 years. Mary Tovar Laura, 25 years. Kim Alamond, 12 years. Ronald Morost, 15 years. Laura Nunes, 15 years. Lynn Staton, 20 years. Diego De Jesus, 14 years. Veronica Krell, 20 years. Richard Giordano, 17 years. Patricia Gomez de Hodges, 16 years. So I think worthwhile to give them a virtual round of applause for all their work with our students and community throughout the years. Thank you.
Well done, Dustin.
Yeah, that's hard.
Drink some water.
Wonderful. I know.
I was trying.
Oh, yes. Public comments?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay. Superintendent comments?
During last week's board meeting, there was a question, what extra has been spent during COVID-19 closure? And Mr. Schellenberg has a paper to provide regarding the known expenses as of 6/10/2020, and will continue to gather information as they close the books. These expenditures fall under the SB 117 monies, one-time state funds being allocated for such expenses.
Thank you. Board comments, Wilson?
Yeah, I just a couple of brief ones. I think in the next couple of meetings, uh, uh, besides the state superintendent of public instruction, give us the requirements to open up the schools, we as a board can, our superintendent has already done quite a bit, and staff, assistants have done quite preparations. So we need to sit down and talk about what are the concerns that we have, so we feel comfortable. You know, I even myself have make some contact with a bunch of friends, they are nurses, and my own daughters, they are doctors, and in terms of safety procedures, okay? And then there was a comment by the president of the classified employee about saying the state spent down the rainy day fund. I think he got that fund mixed up totally with a reserve. So, but I don't think we need to provide answer. That's a different type of fund. That's not a savings account. That's just a set aside account for the state, but the state is, the revenue is down, so the governor had to use up that fund, the rainy day fund. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Dennis?
I'd like to commend the superintendent and her assistants for all the information and work they put in the last 3 months on these tedious meetings, and also my fellow board members. We've had our moments, but we're getting there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Rick?
Just briefly, there was an article in the paper the other day about a student who was at Kaiser Hospital with cancer, and I actually even texted the reporter who I happen to know and said that it was a really good story. It was very uplifting. It was, and Trinae had reached out to and said that the mother of the student works for the district here. It was good to see that the community and the hospital and the district gathered around, because that's no child should have to battle that type of disease. And anyway, it was an uplifting story, and I wanted to thank the district for reaching out and making it possible to get or attempting to do the pictures.
We tried to do that first, and it was Olson Photography that
Yeah.
really stepped up. But because she ended up in the hospital, it was the hospital that took the lead and did that. It was awesome.
Right, it was good
We
stuff.
so
Good job.
appreciate it. Yeah,
But
thanks. Rick.
anyway, just wanted to bring that up. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Maria?
Well, I'm going to start by congratulating all those people who retired. Some of them, I have some personal relationships with them, and I couldn't just walk away without stating some of those personal experiences that I've had with them, especially since I may or may not run into them again in the community. Mary Wellerman, I remember the first time I met her, and as a teacher. At the time, it was Apple Valley. I'm not sure if it was Apple Valley Middle School or when I was a coordinator for the district that I ran into her. Ryan Williams, of course, when he talked about Bell's palsy, I remember when he had that, and I remember going to his classroom to go check out his face. Because that was important. I never saw somebody who had it, so he would make some faces so that I can see what it really feels like. Belinda Gagnon, of course, I have a personal relationship with her, and I had the opportunity to invite her to a virtual coffee just a few days ago, because I wanted us to have some conversation around what's happening in the country right now. So I was able to invite her to a virtual coffee. Lisa Hoberman, I can say that my relationship with Lisa is very unique in the sense that I just love her smile. She lights up every room when she walks in. But I couldn't just walk away and not recognize that she was one of those first teachers that I ever encountered who also earned a national teacher a certification. And sometimes we only get the state teacher certification, but she did earn the national teacher certification. And that to me was a source of pride to be in Apple Valley and have somebody who had that. Of course, Laura Roselle, I met her as a counselor here. She was one of those counselors when we got her in Apple Valley Junior High at the time before Sitting Bull was built, who got us all interested in making sure that as employees that we came to work. So she gave us, we had to earn dog tags. So if you came to work the full month, you got a dog tag. So teachers will do everything they could just so that they will get that dog tag. I had a wealth of dog tags because I didn't want to be sick, I didn't want to be absent. So those are special memories that you gain from these people. And when you see them retire, you wonder if people still remember some of those wonderful experiences. Of course, Cindy Bainey was my daughter's teacher. And so she was able to share with me the stories that my daughter will come to the classroom to share. And just before she retired this school year, she invited me to come and speak in her classrooms, which was a real honor to go in and speak to those kids about setting goals and getting somewhere in your life. I could go on and on about all of these people, but they really, I just have to say that of all of those people that you announced, I have never been more excited to have had a connection with all these fabulous people, and I wish them all well.
Thank you, Maria. Well, watching the video brought back memories because I started teaching in this district in 1973. My husband convinced me that we had to go to California because he had to learn how to fly these fighters. And so we were at George Air Force Base, and it seemed to me like I had just finished college and I was ready to be a teacher. And over the years, it amazed me. I had so many different kinds of jobs. I had an art teacher job for a while, then they did away with art. Then I was a cooking teacher. Now, anybody who has ever been to my house for dinner, they know how serious that is. It's a problem. I don't like to cook.
But you taught it.
So I'm thinking, I've never been to a board meeting like this, ever. We've never had this COVID kind of situation, ever. So this is a remarkable change in our circumstance, and I can only hope it makes us stronger and better to help the kids in the future.
Thank you.
And that's it. Okay. Are there any other comments?
No question. We hope we're never having to deal with it again.
No, you've got the local control accountability.
Yeah.
Local control
Okay.
accountability.
Okay, control accountability.
Thank you. I'll make this brief, but there is on your tables there's a improperly stapled but earnestly presented document that just gives a summary without dollar amounts of the LCAP items, the action items, and the responses from our district advisory committee to those items when we put them through the process of making the difficult decisions of saying, when we look at the budget, even at that time in early March, we knew we had some reductions. So we asked them to prioritize, and this is what they came back with. And I'll just give you a quick summary of those initial reductions. We know that there's been radical changes since then, and the LCAP is not due right now. We're not taking action on
Until
this.
December, right?
Not till December, exactly. We did the operations written report last meeting. We are compliant, but in good faith to our district advisory committee who did this work, I think it's appropriate to share with you what they've done so far, and we will be tasking them tremendously, as well as all stakeholders as we go forward. So yes, December is the next time we'll actually be bringing a one-year LCAP to you, but at the same very time, we'll be doing the next process to build our 3-year LCAP. So remember, they get input from students through surveys. Superintendent Nelson has student focus groups. We have all staff taking surveys. Parents give us survey data, which we had an incredible response. Focus groups meet and we ask them these questions. And of course, the district advisory committee comes together multiple times throughout the year to give us their input.
Can I
Here's-
pause you for a minute there? How do you select your focus group? Who are the people? How do they come in?
Well, for example, we use the DLAC. That's a built structure that's already existing. In fact, the law requires that they have input, so we go to the DLAC. That's one example of a focus group, and there's several like that. Mrs. Nelson convened a group of parents, African-American families, and gathered that group because she knew that wasn't a group that needed to have a particular input. There's also, every school site has a school site council, and so those groups have input at the school site level, which feeds back up. And of course, the most important is probably parents make up the significant portion of our district advisory. They are in the room from every school site. And the reductions they came up with at the beginning here, what we'll be reducing immediately, and these are things necessarily that didn't require a layoff or any change. They did understand that that was possible for the out years, but professional learning will be reduced. So that means we're not going to, and there's a dual savings to that. One, the sub costs. So we won't necessarily be using substitute teachers to pull teachers out of classrooms for professional development, but also we won't be paying teachers. Professional learning will be voluntary in the summertime. So that will reduce our cost greatly. That was a large expense last year. Maintenance support. We had an item where we transferred money into the maintenance account. Mr. Schulenberg made reference during the budget presentation that also will no longer happen. Then some positions by attrition will not be backfilled. There's a tech position that's vacant, will be vacant at Apple Valley High School, will not be filled, at least not fully. High school instructional coaches, there were some retirements. We're not backfilling those positions. They will be down to 1 per school site. Summer school and after school programs sharply reduced. Summer school's very, very limited this year and it's virtual. And after school programs will be limited only to the grant funded programs.
Can I ask a question on the high school instructional coaches?
Yes.
Since one, like you said, one will not be filled back in. So you will then have maybe one more, is that it?
The
How
sites
many
had,
instructional coaches do you have?
there were, through the LCAP process, there were identified 2 full positions per high school.
Okay,
They're down to 1 each.
okay, so one went out, one probably is gone based on natural attrition.
Yes.
And what did you do with the other one to balance it out?
The other one was not a single person. It was individual sections assigned to teachers. So we are
Okay.
reducing that
To
number of
one-
sections to
one
1
each.
FTE, 1
Okay.
equivalent.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, more reductions to follow. This group's ready to do it. They are amazing. They work hard to implement whatever we ask them to do. And so that's just a brief summary of what this is. You don't have to approve this. I just want to make sure you know they're doing the work. And when they do this work, they go back out to the community and they say, this is what we did. And it wasn't easy. And we didn't like it, but we did it anyway. So I want you to know there's a process for that. Okay?
Is that it?
That's it.
So you presented that, why do we have this paper? Because this paper does not match what your presentation says.
This paper,
Yeah, this one that we have.
this is not the exact same. That's correct. What I presented is a summary of
Okay.
these items, where in the column where it says reductions, I've taken those and put them here. But this is a
Okay.
fuller explanation that you are welcome to keep because
Okay.
this is a
All right.
public document.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
I'm gonna have to leave. I have a prior appointment.
No problem. Yeah, excuse
Okay.
me.
Thank you, Mr. Bender.
Thank you for coming. Okay. Let's see, where are we now?
We're on G,
Yep.
discussion.
Discussion session is recommended by the Board of Trustees. Discuss, approve the amended 2020, 2021 board meeting schedule. All those in favor?
You have to have a motion.
I'll
Oh,
make a
yeah.
motion, we approve item 1 and item 2 on item G. I can do one motion for 2.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Can you vote separately for each?
Yes.
Just vote for, so
Okay,
that the recording.
So, I made a motion on, item 1, approve amended 2021 board meeting schedule. I'll
You're
make-
fine.
And-
You
and
just
then
need
we-
a vote for each one.
Okay.
You're
So-
okay. The motions can stand. It's just
Benda
that we
is
can have
not
a-
here,
And
so
then the
Benda
first,
is out.
and then we are talking about the first meeting be July 17th.
Well, I will ask for direction on that just
Oh,
for
okay, that's
verification.
fine.
This is from changing our
Changing,
previous
okay.
ones that we
Okay,
talked about
you asked
last
us
time.
that. Right. So I'll second that, item
All those
G1.
in- Okay, all those in
Can I take a
favor?
vote
Aye.
on
Individual
item
vote.
2?
Oh, individual.
Yes.
You don't have to do an individual. I just need a vote separate from 1 and 2. You made the motion because they're two separate items, just so that
Okay.
Kylie has the
Sorry to
record.
confuse everybody.
It's
Tried to-
okay, Rick.
I tried to.
Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
you were trying, I got it.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Was this-
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Nay.
For G2,
Yeah.
a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay,
Okay.
there we go. Give one more.
Is this the time that we can discuss this kind of, because I keep asking the question about why we hold a board meeting once a month as opposed to twice a month. Do we have a clear answer as to why that is the case?
Well, I have a clear answer as to why Mr. Hoberman asked the board for direction on that, because the board meetings would last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, mostly in closed session, because there weren't enough things that built the actual open
open,
session
okay.
period. So we went to once a month board meetings, and that way there is time between to prepare the board documents. We still have one board member that we provide a binder to, so there's a lot of printing. If we go back to 2, there's time commitment of employees to get those things done. There's no requirement either way. It's just what the recommendation was at the time.
All right, thank you.
Wilson, you've been on the board many, many years. And
Forever.
do you think we should have more meetings or not? I just want your opinion.
We did not see the need to, because it's a waste of staff time. We were able to streamline it. And if you look at over the last few years, if there's a need for a special workshop, we can always schedule that.
And we've done that too.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, I just wanted a
Yeah.
professional opinion.
You always will have 2 board meetings in May. You will have 2 board meetings in June. You will have 2 in December, this coming December, just so that we have, because of transition, that was the decision made.
I actually would have liked to have 2 in August, because the school would just be starting. And so that we can take care of all of the issues that the
Detail.
teachers, there's so much details that comes into our plate in August and in September. So that we can hash those things out and we can return to 1 a month. But I'd like to have more upfront, so that if we have to do the start of the school year issues, or whatever the CDE tells us to do, or whatever the state of California tells us to do, we don't have to wait a whole month. I like to plan way ahead. I don't like to just suddenly, can you come for a board meeting? And it's like, wait a minute, I have a whole schedule already out. I like to know that that's something that we can think of as a district, to begin to think of those early times so that we can get the board meetings out of the way earlier, so that we don't have to come back in August or in September and have board meetings that take forever to finish, because there's so much on the docket for that. So that's why I'm asking this question.
So then we need to go back to the amended board meeting schedule that was voted as a 4-0, that to approve it, it was G1. And if there's a question to pull that and change it, then I need direction, because we
I
took
would like
action.
I would like to have it pulled so that we can have further discussion on this. And if it comes down that that's what we're gonna do, I'm just one voice in the board, but I would like to have us have further discussion so that you can hear my my thought process regarding why we are doing one a month, especially in the early part of the school year, considering that we're coming out of a COVID situation and we're coming out of a school shutdown that we've had since March. There's so many layers that we need to address before we can start up school again, whatever model that the government gives us.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we will have 2 meetings in August.
Okay.
She's
So
all
wait,
right.
wait,
I'll
wait.
pull it
let's-
out. I would like to, my motion is actually to pull this from this agenda item.
You've already
and place
voted
it.
on this, so my recommendation for Robert's Rules of Order would be to, at the end, where you can add or request, that we
Okay.
request that as,
And
if
I
any,
know.
at the end,
Very
to
good.
add that option, you have an option there, future items, under L1.
Okay,
And that way we can
move,
determine
move
that.
ahead, okay.
Yeah,
I
because you
see
already took a
L1.
vote and it would have needed to be done then, but you have the option there at L1 to make
Okay.
that recommendation.
Yeah, under L1, we can say we will add 2 meetings in August, but only if, and the superintendent will determine if there's actual need, we will have it. So, okay,
Well,
we can do that.
okay. Alrighty then, now we are at,
You're at G3.
So move.
all those in favor?
No,
We
no
need a
second.
second.
Oh, second, sorry.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Oh,
just read what was the motion again? It's at the direction of the superintendent if we need 2 meetings? Is that
There's
what
no
it was?
motion yet.
There's no motion, we're
That-
gonna
that's-
wait
that's-
till
That's what
L.
we discuss later.
When we get
What are
to
we voting
L,
on?
We're voting on G3.
Oh,
To
three.
approve the requested
G3.
leaves.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So
Sorry.
we
It's
skip-
okay.
G3.
Ready?
so we'll go back to it on L when we hit L.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, yeah,
G3.
okay.
Aye.
And then, number 4.
So, yeah.
okay.
Approve the recommendation of the administration hearing.
I'll move,
Chairperson.
I'll move. that
I'll
we-
second it.
Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm on number 5. Adopt the proposed budget for 2020, 2021. All those in favor?
No, need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve,
I'll second it.
adopt the proposed budget.
Okay, Rick, and then Wilson.
Mhm.
And number 6, approve the
You have to have a vote.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you see Maria?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'm just smiling.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's see. Number 5,
Number 6.
6.
6, approve the implementation of the universal meal service at all AVUSD schools and submit application for the community eligibility provision.
Make a
Motion to approve. I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's see,
Consent.
consent agenda.
I move that we approve 1 through 8.
So I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we're back down to public comment.
Okay,
Do we have any, Harley?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Do we have
Okay.
staff report?
Staff reports?
Do you have questions about them?
Do we have staff
No.
reports? Because it's
Do we
here.
have one? It's one of the,
It's always on there, and they would be, the staff reports or the police department reports. They were on your agenda
Okay.
as
okay,
part of your packet.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
okay. Staff reports, public comments?
We do not have public comments at this
No.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Connie. Superintendent's comments?
Yes, it was recommended that we schedule a board meeting for July 17th at 1 PM Can I have direction to do that so that we can discuss reopening of schools? By that time, we hope to have more detail from the Department of Public Health.
I think we
recommend that
should. I think we should have some information by that time so that we could give you some direction.
Okay,
That's it.
so we will go ahead and get that scheduled,
Yes.
and
We all
Kylie will get
agree,
the
I think.
information out.
Mhm.
It's July
Yes.
17th, yeah.
July
July
17 at 1
17th, 1
p.m.
PM.
1 PM, yeah.
And then we have served this week 800 to 900 students for our summer meals, the 2 weeks that we've been serving. So just know that we continue to serve at 3 sites. It's greatly reduced as far as the participation, but they are walking up and getting lunches. And so we're happy to continue to serve both breakfast and lunch in 4 days a week. And on Thursday, they provide 2 meals for Thursday and Friday.
And how many kids?
800 to 900.
Oh,
8 to 900 each day.
Yeah, each day.
oh my
I said
goodness.
week, didn't I? I apologize.
Yeah,
Matt.
that's how we compare with other places.
Mhm.
And then we did do a save the date for an in-person graduation. We did 2 dates. One would have been next week. We are canceling that one and getting some information out to families today. But we are moving forward with our July 29th, Granite Hills, and July 30th, Apple Valley High School. Hoping that we will have our face-to-face graduation on those days. The time is to be determined. It most likely will be when the sun has gone down so that we don't deal with the heat, the extreme heat that could be. We are working with risk management and others to determine how to do this safely and propose that information to the Department of Public Health. We have sent a survey out. It will actually go out after this board meeting to families to include contact information and who plans to participate. Most students that had graduated indicated they would be participating in a previous discussion. And then the California Department of Education has provided a guidance document, and they will continue to say these are not requirements, just recommendations. It is a local decision on reopening. Several of the superintendents in the high desert, based on the data of our communities, believe it is imperative to open our schools on August 5th if we can do that. And there is a letter that we are signing requesting further consideration of some of the things that they have included having to do with transportation and masks on students all day, that might not be feasible or practical for all kids. And so we have drafted something. All of the high desert superintendents are planning to send that as a consideration to the county superintendent, to the state superintendent of public instruction, and to our local public health official. So just know that we are advocating for this to happen.
So all the districts are, yeah, of the same mind.
I do have a question regarding that. If you have that out in place, does a district have information? Are they able to get the information regarding the households of those children that will probably come for the in seat? To be clear that if they have an elderly person that lives in the home or somebody with a compromised immune system, what that will do when that child comes to the school and takes something home to the parents.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about how you're gonna navigate that piece of information?
Yeah, one of the things we have done that has not been approved yet by our JPA is an acknowledgement form that every family that would return their children to school would understand we are not a COVID-free environment. And therefore, there will be some health requirements, there will be some self-checks and some potential temperature checks and things like that are all recommendations. Further, we will recommend that anybody that is experiencing illness or uncomfortable with coming to school for whatever reason, that they stay home and make sure that they are healthy before they return to school. Very different than what we have experienced in the past, because obviously we want kids in school. So this will be a change.
So if a student is not able to come to school and this becomes an ongoing thing, have you had the opportunity to have a conversation at the county level on how the SAR program is going to work?
It doesn't sound like the SARB program will be the issue. The issue will be rather how we support the student at home through a virtual platform or whatever it means are necessary to provide that education to that child. We have requested a waiver having to do with independent study because that's where this falls, even if it's long-term versus short-term. But we will, the goal now is not about how it used to be
Yeah.
punitive. We have to engage and be supportive in all situations and reach out to families.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And would this be a case where the parent decides if the kid's well enough to go to school or?
Yeah, the families will be the first lens. If they believe their child is experiencing a cough, a fever, any of the symptoms that are listed in the CDC requirements, we will request that the parent make that final call about their child. Now, if the child gets to school and presents that they are not feeling well, and in our area that could look like allergies, for goodness sake. But
Sure.
if that were to happen, we will contact, and there has to be a process by which we have the child picked up and we provide an education. So those are all things that we are working through as we move through this process. We will, one of the reasons to convene the July 17th board meeting is to prepare all of the data that we gather in our second survey from families about the commitment of virtual platform and some of the requirements that they may have to face coming back. And right now it is just uncertain, even though the CDE, the state board has provided that document.
I have one final question, maybe not, but it has to do with staffing. As you stated, we have quite a few teachers who are willing to do the virtual format. And I do understand their rights not to give you health information. They do have those rights. But are you going to be able to get some kind of a waiver so that a teacher can tell you in that sheet of paper that says, I have a compromised immune health issue, so that I go to the top of the list in terms of who can now do instruction solely online because of their health concerns? Because we cannot say you can't come back, you can't teach for us because you are not healthy. They used to teach for us, but because of the COVID issue, we now have a struggle in terms of, do you want to be in front of the children who may or may not bring something to you? So do you have some kind, and that's why I'm looking at the HR and the ed services, because you two are the ones that will have to think about how that's going to play out. Do you have any authorization to allow you to put those teachers who have compromised health issues at the top of your list if online instruction becomes a mode of instruction down the road? Because we don't know yet as of today.
Right. A lot of uncertainties, and your question in today's system would be treated in a way similar to anybody with an accommodation plan. So employees often prior to COVID would come to us with some kind of limitation based that I work, at my the human resource department along with risk management looks at those restrictions, looks for what positions within our system could possibly accommodate those positions, and if those positions exist, that's how the determination will be made. How does COVID going to change that? I don't know. I don't know. But we recognize that this is a something that in our current system would be handled that way.
Okay, thank you.
I think Mr. Sophia asked a pretty valid question. Yeah, you're saying if we have some older teachers and not retired yet, and if you remember, the CDC point out these are a group of people like you myself, the older folks, you are more susceptible to contracting the virus, and so maybe by next meeting we have under the state Department of Education guideline, can we ask the teachers to volunteer information, let's say if they have concerns, maybe that's correct, in terms of their health?
At this point, Mr. So that would be a HIPAA violation.
That's what-
Yeah,
The
okay.
only way we can do this is if there is some change to law, which we do not anticipate. We are not hearing that that will be the case. Only what Mr. Conrad said about a teacher that comes to us with a appropriate documentation from a doctor that we don't ask questions. It's an accommodation plan and it goes through a process.
Okay.
Those doctor notes, even in respect to HIPAA, we're not asking for diagnoses or anything like that. We're asking for,
Limitations.
employee cannot lift, cannot be in the presence of, we don't know why, but we see some doctor and then we determine what exists.
Sure.
And then those come out with either an accommodation plan or not able to accommodate. So understand that unless something changes legislatively, that is our limitation.
Yeah, primarily, the reason I asked that question is for mutual protection, both our teachers and.
We understand.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Mhm. Your board comments.
Okay, board comments? Do you want to start, Wilson?
I don't have any further
No
comments.
comments.
No.
Oh, my goodness.
I have no further comment.
No further comments. Well, I just hope that,
Closing items, so the future items, I'm gonna bring it back. Because I need to come back to future items. I need us to have on the agenda for the next time on having 2 board meetings in August.
okay.
And to revisit how we do board meetings so that we can meet the needs of our district. If there's a need for us to have 2, we should be able to put it in the agenda, in our schedule.
So is the request to bring back to the July 17th that I asked that we calendar the discussion of the calendar again and maybe readopt and place another board meeting in August as needed? I mean, it could be there and then if there is no new need, then it's there, but and it could be canceled if you choose to.
I would like to see a new board meeting, and when we have the next board meeting, I would like to see 2 board meetings in August, 2 board meetings in September, so that we can get the school started. And then we'll go back to a one each.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll bring the calendar if the rest of the board agrees that that's the direction, and we will provide those dates based on a 2-week cycle, probably not including student representatives at every one of them because that's disruptive to their schedule and we've gotten used to the process
Yeah.
for them. We want to protect their nights.
Okay.
But we will do that for August and September, and then you can take action on it and amend it how you choose.
Thank you.
Right.
So you made that motion?
I did.
It's not a
not a
motion,
motion,
it's a
it's a
request
It's
It's
a
a request, okay,
for a future item.
okay. And, let's see,
Well, the next regular board meeting is not August 6th, it's July
Well,
17th.
It isn't a regular board meeting because we made the decision tonight to add it, or this afternoon to add it. Therefore, you are going to have a special board meeting that is going to be
Okay.
posted like a normal board meeting 72 hours prior because we know about it. We won't wait for the 24 hours, but it will be called a special board meeting because it is not calendared.
Okay, good.
Okay?
okay, and
The next
the
meeting
dates
is
on
July
those?
19th, 17th.
July
Yes.
17th. Why does July 17th?
Yep. Okay, and let's see. Any more comments? Did you have comments?
You're
Brett?
actually
No.
to adjournment.
Oh,
You're at adjournment. You are.
okay, we're at the adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Those opposed?
You need a motion
I'll
for
make a motion,
adjournment?
we adjourn.
Motion,
you.
yeah.
You need a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks.
And then we sign papers.
we'll sign papers.
Okay.